What up, y'all? It's the homie Dame, and today we're talking about shonen anime tropes, specifically battle shonen, not shonen rom-com, not sports shonens, specifically shonens where Japanese teenagers punch each other really, really hard. We all know that a lot of popular battle shonens can be formulaic and tropey, they're basically the anime equivalent of Marvel movies, but that's also the reason we love them so much, If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I compiled a list of some popular battle shonen tropes to rank based on how much I enjoy them in a story. Now obviously most of the time this comes down to execution. A show can be tropey and cookie cutter as hell, but if it's written and executed well, it can be great. So I'll just be ranking them in a vacuum, like how they are on their own, right? If someone mentioned that a show had this trope, what would my gut reaction be? Also, I'm sure I don't need to say this, but this isn't every trope in existence. It's just some of the more prevalent ones, or ones I see a lot or I'm interested in, or that I hate. Oh yeah, there'll probably be spoilers for a bunch of different anime and manga here in this video. Y'all know how I am. I just be saying whatever without thinking, so keep that in mind. So let's get into it, but first, like, subscribe, blah blah blah, comment, blah blah blah, Patreon, Twitter, whatever. Let's go. The first trope is the incredibly niche and specific high school that our main cast attends. Shonen anime is directed towards young school-aged boys, right? So they make the setting something that these kids can relate to. School. But we all know school's for fucking dweebs, so what if you went to school to be a superhero, or learn how to be a ninja, or learn how to cook? I guess Shokugeki is a battle shonen. Don't even start with me. I generally like this trope. It's the ultimate kid fantasy, right? The West does it too. We all know about this ghetto ass place. And I do think setting your anime in a niche high school is playing it really safe, but it's never bad. And I'm never like rolling my eyes whenever the anime starts out as like, today I'm starting my first day at Michael Vick Academy where I'm gonna learn to be the greatest illegal dog fighter in Japan. I'm gonna say this trope is C tier. Next is the 2 guy, 1 girl trope. Now this is something that can be found in a bunch of anime genres, but I want to talk specifically about the Team 7 configuration. The spunky, headstrong one, usually the main character. The brooding, edgy one, usually a rival. And a girl. Again, a lot of shows follow this format, but the big one I'm thinking of is obviously Naruto, which has kind of set the formula for modern day shonens to follow. Even future shows like Chainsaw Man that push the boundaries of the genre and kind of break the mold have some variation of this dynamic with Denji, Aki, and power. To me, this trope is fine. It only gets lame when the cast is really one-dimensional and uninteresting, but when you have a cast like, let's say, Jujutsu Kaisen's, where the dynamic is there, but they're like actual characters that, have personality and charm to them, it's a lot more tolerable. I'm gonna say another C tier. The next trope is the romantically/sexually aloof protagonist. A lot of shonen protagonists are made to be relatable to teenage boys, right? You know what teenage boys have in common? They're all horny as fuck. It can be funny sometimes when a protagonist is so sexually stunted that they still think babies come from the stork, but that's usually when it's presented as like not a big part of their character or personality, or maybe if it's like a one-off gag or something. In general, I think it's really fucking annoying to see, especially when their dumbassery is exaggerated to unrealistic levels, and especially if the gag is unfunny when it happens. So I'm gonna say this is F tier. The next one we got is similar, the dumbass protagonist trope. I'm sure you know this one, the MC who only lives to punch. Anything else and they're literally incapable of functioning. This one isn't as bad as the romantically aloof protagonist for me, because a lot of the time it can be legitimately funny to see someone like Asta be so naive about everything and just have such a blockheaded and blunt approach to life, but it's also a cheap gag, and if you don't write a character like this properly, it can get annoying really quick. I guess I'm gonna put this at D tier, because in general I don't like it, but I've seen examples of it being like, tolerable at best. One more protagonist specific trope I'm gonna rank is the underdog protagonist. If you're not overpowered like Goku, you gotta start out as some bum, you know, the "I'm just an average high schooler." Bonus points if the main character can't use whatever the power system of that world is. Oh, I can't use magic. Oh, I'm quirkless. Oh, I just suck at being a ninja in general. I'll just straight up say that I like this trope a lot. It really seems like a no-brainer from a writing perspective, you know? How can we show that this character has grown? Well, you know, he starts out as some cock and he ends up as the baddest dude on the planet. Some of the most satisfying shonen moments come from seeing an underdog character glow the fuck up in front of everyone. You gotta hammer it in at the beginning of the story that they're a straight bum, then give them like believable development, have them get stronger in a way that's consistent to their character or isn't like an ass pull, and then have them pull out a big dub on the biggest stage possible, and boom. You basically have the whole Chunin exam arc from Naruto. Again, it's great and it never really gets old for me, but the key is to make the development believable when it happens. It's no fun if they're suddenly competent out of nowhere, or if the reasoning you give is flimsy, like, oh, they had a flashback, or oh, there's this Deus Ex Machina we never set up. But aside from that, this trope is pretty S tier for me. Oh nice, we got our first S tier, love to see it. The next trope I'm just gonna call Battle Spectators, and I'm sure you can guess what I mean by that. How else are we gonna know what technique the hero is using if his buddy on the sideline with glasses doesn't explain it to us? How are we gonna know the tragic backstory of our antagonist if one of his lackeys doesn't explain it on the sideline to our main cast? How would we know what clever trick a character pulled off if someone on the side didn't pause the pacing of the entire show to go, wait, how did he pull that off? Explain that to me again?
How exactly did he do that anyway?
This is something that a lot of people find annoying, and I get why, but I actually don't mind it. And you know, believe me, I hate over exposition more than anything. One of the biggest rules of filmmaking is show, don't tell. You gotta trust your audience to understand what's going on instead of just spelling it out for them. That being said, there are cases where a little bit more exposition can actually enhance a fight. You know, like add drama, add impact. And the best example for that I can think of off the top of my head is in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. To me, something like Speedwagon explaining exactly what's going on in a JoJo fight is less disrespecting the audience and more enhancing the fight itself. His dramatic explaining of events we're literally seeing right now is almost Shakespearean in how melodramatic and corny it is, but that just adds to the excitement of an action scene, at least in my opinion. That being said, when it's in something like Naruto and the exposition is clearly there just to pad time before the next boring fight, it's like, alright, fast forward. Overall, I'd say this is a C tier trope. Next, we got the Overpowered Sensei trope. When the person who teaches or trains the main cast is just the baddest dude ever and is seemingly invincible, aka Jiraiya, Kakashi, All Might, Gojo. You know, the type of character that weebs in their 30s will have as their profile pic because they're too embarrassed to be an adult with Deku as their picture. I'd say I'm a fan of this specifically for one reason. It's great to have an overpowered sensei because it's great to see them fail. It goes all the way back to Western films like Star Wars, which if you didn't know is actually heavily inspired by Japanese filmmaking. Obi-Wan, the wise and powerful mentor, gets washed, and that helps us see that Darth Vader is that dude. In the same way, how do we know that someone like Pain is a threat? Well, you know, he bodies Kakashi and Jiraiya, people who we know to have been like the baddest dudes. It's great for storytelling because it really changes the dynamic of a series when we have a character and we take comfort in the fact that their wisdom and strength will beat a villain if our MC can't, and then they just get folded or even just made to look human. I'm thinking again, recent examples like All Might or even like Captain Yami. Those are usually really powerful moments in a story that I like. Other than that one aspect though, I'd say sometimes it can be predictable when you have a super overpowered mentor character. A lot of the times there's not a lot of places you could go with their story because they'll always be secondary to the main character or the main cast because, you know, they had their time already. They're usually there to make way for the new generation. Whatever, fine. But when it's written well, it can be fun, so I'm gonna say it's A tier. The next trope is Talk no Jutsu, aka somehow the dumb protagonist is eloquent enough with their speech to convince someone not to murder. As with with a lot of tropes on this list, this one comes down to the quality of the writing. It's almost as if the quality of storytelling in general is determined by how good of a writer you are. I can see why a lot of people will find it contrived or convenient for a character to be able to convince someone to abandon years of ideology after one conversation, but the thing for me is it can work out if you write it well enough. And when it's done well, I think it can be really satisfying to see a problem resolved without the go-to, let's shoot energy beams at each other until someone dies. There are countless examples of this in non-shonen anime, but that's not what this video is about. So a good shonen example is in Mob Psycho, when Mob convinces the spirit of Mogami, which has possessed a plant, to not kill man. I don't know what his name is. It's a really childish and immature argument from Mob because he basically says not to kill man because he promised he'd be good from now on. Mogami is obviously skeptical, as he should be, because I've heard the same thing from many ex-girlfriends before. He tells Mob that he can't possibly know that Plant Man will keep his promise to be good, and Mob says you gotta give him a chance anyway. The reason it works is because everyone's actions are in line with what we'd expect from their characters. We expect Mob to give an impassioned but naive plea to the villain's morality, and we expect Mogami to listen because even though he's evil, Mob has intrigued him enough to get him to doubt his worldview. The confrontation doesn't end with Mogami forsaking his evil ways or choosing to walk the path of good. He just gives Mob's views on things a chance because he's just curious. To me, that's satisfying enough from a writing and character perspective to be like, yeah, I believe that interaction and it works for me. Again, that's just one example that I can think of real quick. In general, it can be contrived to have someone's heart change because of the power of friendship, or please don't do bad thing, I can save you. But when it works, it really works. So I'm gonna say B tier. Next is dad is a bum and mom is dead trope. In the real world, we have the nuclear family dynamic. Two parents and their kids and maybe like a dog or something. But we all know that shit's boring because it limits the options you have for your characters to go out and adventure. So in shonen anime, we gotta get rid of the parents. Get the fuck out of here. Or, we gotta make them a part of the character's trauma because, character development or something. Jotaro has a mom, but his dad is nowhere to be found. Naruto's parents are dead. Goku's parents are dead. Gon's dad is a bum. Aaron's mom is dead. Endeavor is an asshole. This trope is so prevalent, and it usually occurs early enough in the story that I don't notice it, or I get over it by the time I read or watch more into the story. But really thinking about it, I kind of hate this trope. I like when authors challenge themselves and find ways to write compelling stories without falling back on common literary devices, and so it's easy to be like, how do I make this character more compelling and tragic? Let's kill one or both of their parents. Whenever I come across this trope in a story, it's always one of those eye roll things that you just gotta accept and get past and move on with the show. Obviously, conflict with parents or lack of parents have led to some of the most compelling character arcs in all of shonen. I know all you soft motherfuckers shed a tear when Naruto met his dad and later on his mom. The thing I have is that it's more exciting for me when an author can create those great moments without falling back on this trope. If I had to come up with an example now, Bakugo, his parents are relatively decent people, and yet he has arguably the most compelling arc in all of My Hero Academia. Yeah, he kind of has like a rough relationship with his mom, but at least she's there and supportive and is never a source of trauma for his character. Again, not to say that Todoroki is whack because of his family situation. It's more props to Horishiki for being able to bring out such an engaging storyline from Bakugo despite not falling back on a trope like this. So yeah, because it makes me annoyed when I see this trope and happy when it gets subverted, I'm gonna give this an F tier. The next trope we have is fan service. So shonen anime by definition is geared towards young boys, right? Like teenage or younger. There's nothing boys who are going through puberty love more than ass and titties. I'd argue as much as they love seeing people punch and beams clash, they love seeing boobies shake and booties bounce. I mean, I'm a grown-ass man and I love those things. But the question is, do I love these things in my battle shonen anime about Japanese teenagers punching each other? I mean, sometimes. First, let's get the moral issue of sexualizing teenagers out of the way. It's just cartoons. They're not real. It's just drawings. Nobody looks at a big titty 16-year-old in anime and then goes out into the real world and looks at a real life actual teenage girl in the same way. And if they do, they were probably sickos to begin with, and it has nothing to do with anime. Alright, now that that's out of the way, fan service can be kind of fucking weird. See, the way I look at it is like this. Number 1, is there context for the titties and ass? Number 2, do the titties and ass get in the way of actual storytelling? Number 3, does the showing of titties and ass undermine or degrade an otherwise good character? Number 4, are the titties and ass shown with some kind of wink-wink, tongue-in-cheek satirical intent? Depending on the answers to those questions, I can be okay with seeing some fan service. Even in the year of Our Lady Aqua 2021, America has like this weird puritanical fear of sex, so eyebrows are always going to be raised whenever, like a breast pops out on screen. Now, I understand completely why people would be uncomfortable with extreme sexualization in anime. It can feel degrading to them. That's fair. It can make them uncomfortable because they don't like seeing sexual content, personal convictions aside. That's fair. Or they can be taken out of a show by seeing random ass and titties in the air. Like, I didn't sign up for this in my action cartoon. That's fair too. But this video is about my personal take on the trope. And in general, I can't say I love it, but I can't say I hate it either. And for the record, this is coming from someone who considers Kill la Kill and Monogatari as all-time favorite shows. When it comes to specifically battle shonen anime, maybe leave the fan service out. Most of the time it's distracting and insulting, and at best it's something you just gloss over. Like if I was really that horny for some cartoon punani, I'd just go watch hentai. Like right now I'm in the mood to see Asta fight this Slipknot devil. That being said, I'm never gonna reel away or cringe at fan service in a show unless it gets into creepy, problematic, legitimately uncomfortable territory like Seven Deadly Sins, for example. Like, believe me, man, breasts don't bother me. One of my earliest jobs is washing dishes at a topless bar. It's fine. But then again, this is coming from my straight male perspective. I can never speak for women or people of other orientations about how they feel about that kind of stuff. So all in all, the trope of fan service is D tier. Fuck, I don't want to make this video too long. Okay, last few for now. The power of friendship trope. This one is kind of similar to Talk no Jutsu. A lot of the times Talk no Jutsu uses the power of friendship, but I want to rank it separately because I'm talking more about, the general theme of it. This is often the moral lesson in a lot of battle shonen anime. Your friends are important. It's heroic to go the extra mile for your friends and to sacrifice for the people you care about. And, of course, we all know those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. I don't remember who said that. I think it was Kanye West or something. Again, this one is basically the same as Talk no Jutsu in that it's really the quality of the writing that determines if I like this trope or not. In general, I think a lot of battle shonen anime portray their message of friendship equals good pretty well. I'll use JoJo as an example again. In Stardust Crusaders, they never really expressed this in like a ham-fisted way, or like, our bonds of friendship are strong enough to defeat you, Dio. But it's clear that there's a big emphasis on the idea of friendship or brotherhood specifically throughout this series. And even though a lot of big brain 200 IQ English majors will say that this is a basic or cliche theme to put in your story, I for one don't have 200 IQ, so I'm okay with tried and true tropes like this, as long as they're done well and not in a corny or contrived way. I'm gonna give this A tier. Next we got the power level determined by ranking in an organization trope. This is one that I could imagine most people don't care about or aren't bothered by, but I get turbo triggered by this. So let's say we have our setting at the niche and specific school, Michael Vick's Academy for Dogfighting. And in it, you have the student council nicknamed the Shadow Fangs. There are 6 of them, with Fang number 1 being the most powerful dogfighting champion in all of Japan. The first big boss battle after the first few arcs will probably be with like a lower ranked Fang, and they'll be overpowered as fuck to set the power scale for how strong the future ones will be. This is such a common and tired trope that I absolutely irrationally hate. Almost every battle shonen has this organization with their members ranked by power level. You got the Hashira and the upper/lower moons in Demon Slayer, the Kage and Akatsuki in Naruto, and ninja ranks in general, the top 10 heroes in My Hero Academia, the Magic Knight captains in Black Clover, the Elite 10 Council from Shokugeki. Literally the list goes on. And you can expect that the main character will hit one of those ranks at some point, or maybe their dream is to be, the #1 Dragon Scale Alliance member. I remember when Naruto was still being published, half the fan art was Naruto at like different stages. Like here's Naruto as a Genin, as a Chunin, as a Jonin, then as Hokage. And it was like, what would Naruto look like at this stage? Because this was back when, in part 1, where he was still a bum. It's such a ham-fisted way to set power levels and establish threats like, how strong is this demon? It's Upper Moon 6, so they're probably pretty badass, but nothing compared to the top 3 Upper Moons. Again, it's not the biggest deal, but for me, I roll my eyes every time I see something like this introduced. Considering how in shonens power level is such a definitive, objective, quantitative measurement, which is already annoying in and of itself to me, add to it this uncreative way of making progress and telling us who is stronger than who. I don't know. This one goes in my irrational hate tier. Finally, after all these other tropes, we'll end with my favorite shonen trope, and one that a good amount of shonen fans probably love as well. The tournament arc, yay! Japanese children punching each other for entertainment, yay! I love how I literally just said I hate how quantitative power levels feel in shonen, and I hate like hard markers for determining strength. Yeah, here I'm about to go talking about I love a system in where characters duke it out to determine power status in a fixed hierarchy. But guess what? Like all other literary devices, I like this because it gives so many ways for authors to be creative. Every time I get to a tournament arc in a shonen anime or manga, I also do a little Birdman hand rub, like, ooh, how they gonna change it up? Or how are they gonna put their little spin on it? Or even if they keep it, relatively straightforward and cliche, that's okay too, as long as it's well executed. In my opinion, one of the best arcs in all of shonen is a tournament arc, aka the Chunin exams from Naruto. How many great character moments did we have? So many hype revelations, and of course, can't forget about the children punching. It's like telling a master chef to make a sandwich, right? We all have a general idea of what to expect from a sandwich. 2 slices of bread, some stuff to go in between, meat, cheese, veggies, whatever. But every chef will give you their own take on the formula. Some might add exotic ingredients, some might toast it, some might give you some avant-garde deconstructed sandwich, and some might give you like a really standard BLT. At the end of the day, it's still a sandwich. Tournament arcs are, the same way. Every author will take the formula and execute it in their own special way, and each time it'll be exciting to watch because you have different characters participating, different rules. Maybe the tournament will get interrupted by the organization with quantitative rankings. Maybe it'll just be straightforward where the main character wins the whole thing. It's such a cliched format, but I get excited every time one starts because you never really know how one is going to end up, and for that I'm going to put it in S tier. Alright, well, that's everything for this video. I hope you liked it. I want to try doing random miscellaneous content videos like this more. Again, this is in addition to all the normal stuff. The commentaries will come out. Don't worry, I'll get to JoJo Part 5 eventually. And also the OP reactions will come back soon. I know some of y'all are disappointed that I'm not doing more analytical music stuff, so I'll bring that back too for sure. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Donate to Patreon if you want to get early access to stuff, and that's the video. Thank you to all the Patreons in the $5 tier, and special thank you to Just Inhalin in the top level $25 tier. Just Inhalin, huh? We know what they're doing in their free time. That's what's up, dog. Shout out to you.